Chala, Perek Daled, Mishnah Ches. Rabban Gamliel Oimer, Sholosh Arotzes Lachala. There are three specific areas with specific halachas as far as chala is concerned. Minat Torah, chala only needs to be given from dough, bread, from grain that comes from Eretz Yisrael. Initially, when Yeshua conquered Eretz Yisrael, that area had Kedushas Eretz Yisrael. Subsequently, at the Churban Bayis Rishon, they went out of Eretz Yisrael and that Kedusha then stopped. When they came back with Ezra, rebuilding the second Beis HaMikdash, the Kedusha returned to the area where Ezra, Hechaziku, where they lived, where they took control, where they lived. But that area was not as large as the land that Yeshua had conquered. Only the area which was taken control at the time of Ezra, when they went back to Eretz Yisrael, that had the Kedusha, and that Kedusha remains. Therefore, we find the following. Me'eretz Yisrael v'ad Keziv. Eretz Yisrael, the area that when Ezra came back after being in Golus in Bovel, that area extends ad Keziv. We're looking just at the northerly borders. There was a strip that went from Akko, not to be confused to the Akko by the Mediterranean. There was another Akko on the northeastern side, which extended ad Keziv. There was a strip that went up to Keziv. Chala achas. In any of that area, if one has chala from produce of that area, it's chayiv chala min haTorah, and one chala would be given to a kohen, which should be eaten b'tara. Miksiv, from Keziv, in according to the Bartanura on the northeastern side, the ad hanohar, extending eastwards towards the river. There was a river on the side, on the eastern side of Keziv. The ad Amona, and there was a mountain Amona. Many say this is Hor Hahar, mentioned in the borders of Eretz Yisrael, not to be confused with another Hor Hahar which was in the south. There was another mountain Amona, which was in the northwestern side. That area, which was now extended to the area of the borders of Yeshua. Now in that area, Chaz Chomim said the following: Shtei chalas. Here we need to take two chalas. Achas lu'ur. One of these chalas need to be burnt. And the reason for that, we mentioned in the previous Mishnah, is the Chachomim said anywhere in Chutz La'oretz, the land is considered tamei. And this is because people were not familiar exactly where people were buried, and therefore they were concerned that the area may have had graves which were not noticed or not known that they were graves, and therefore they made the land of Chutz La'oretz tamei. Therefore, any produce which comes from that area, the extended area, is not Eretz Yisrael according to the borders of Ezra. Two chalas are taken, one needs to be burnt, because it's Eretz Ha'amim, Eretz beyond Eretz Yisrael proper, but one should be given to the Kohen too. Why is that? Explains the Bartanura. If just one was burnt, and that was originally the land of Eretz Yisrael in the time of Yeshua, people might think that even chala tahora should be burnt. Therefore, they said no, one extra challah should be given to a kohen to eat. And although it's tamei, it could be eaten by a kohen. It was outside the land of Eretz Yisrael proper, and people will then ask what is going on, and they'll be told that this actually is not Eretz Yisrael proper. Shel ur yesh lo shir. We're talking about the shir of challah. The one that was burnt, that had the required shir of challah. But b'shel kohen, the one that was given to the kohen, ein lo shir, did not have a shir. The smallest amount could be given to a kohen. Then we move to the third area. Min hanohar umin amona. From that river, which was on the eastern side of Kaziv, and from that mountain Amona, vilifnim, and inwards, explains the Bartanura, means from the actual side of the brink, from the river, and inwards into the river, and from that mountain and into the mountain, and from there and beyond. That is considered properly chutz la'aretz. And even in that area, shtei chalas, 2 chalas should be taken and given, as we'll see. One of them, achas la'or, 1 burnt, and 1 will be given to the kohen. However, in this case, seeing as this is totally midrabanon, that people shouldn't forget about the mitzvah of challah, this was never part of Eretz Yisrael. Shel ur ein lo shir, the one that's burnt doesn't have a shir. But the one that goes to the kohen, and he will eat it, yesh lo shir, that does have the required shir. Continues the Mishnah. There are further kulas about the challah in chutz la'aretz. Utful yoim oichla. Explains the Bartanura. If in chutz la'aretz one was giving challah to a kohen, and the kohen was tohar, in fact only 1 challah needs to be given and eaten by the kohen, although it was tumeil because it came from chutz la'aretz. Even further, if you were giving it to a kohen, and the kohen was tomei from an external tumah, what do I mean by that? For example, the kohen became tomei because he was in contact with a mace. Even such a kohen could eat that challah. Only 1 challah needed to be given to him. And a further extension, even if the tumah came because the person was tomei, and that was an internal tumah, and there will be examples mentioned in a moment. For example, we have nid or yoledes, someone who's given birth. Other examples. In such a case, also, as we'll see, those occasions, yes, 2 challahs need to be given. However, if this internal tumah was because an emission, a seminal emission, then, says the Mishnah, Tful Yoim, this individual who was tomei from this emission, but he's been to the mikveh on that day, he's getting towards the end of the period of his tumah. He's come out of the mikveh, but he's still waiting till that evening. That's what's called a Tavul Yom. He was tovel, but he's waiting till the end of that day until he becomes properly tohar. Someone, under those circumstances, can eat the challah, and therefore only 1 challah needs to be given to such an individual too. That's a Tvul Yom Oichla. A Tvul Yom is a mission, a seminal mission, can be eaten after he has been to the mikveh, even though it's not yet night. Rabbi Yossi goes further. Einun tzorech tvila. Even if someone who was tomei from an internal tumah, according to Rabbi Yossi, he can still eat that first challah, the challah which we thought previously was burnt. Only 1 challah needs to be given to such an individual. If you're giving it directly to the kohen, 1 challah needs to be given, and he in fact could eat that challah. Continues the Mishnah, going back to the Chachomim. the Tanakama, va'asura lazovim v'lazovis lanidos v'layoldos, as we mentioned previously. If this is an internal tumah, for example, zovim, zovos, this is also a type of emission, a zov for males, females, as mentioned in Parshas Metzora. Lenidos v'layoldos, nida yoldos, those who had given birth, and they were wives of Kohanim, they would be forbidden to eat the challah. Therefore, 2 challahs should be given to those individuals. And that wouldn't matter even if they had been tovel and the end of the day hadn't come. They can only eat that challah if they were totally tohar. Continues the Mishnah. V'ne'acheles im hazor ala shulchan. In Eretz Yisrael, it was forbidden for a kohen to eat his challah together with a zor, a non-kohen, at the same table, because we were scared that maybe the zor, the non-kohen, would eat of that challah. If this was in Chutz La'aretz and the kohen is eating his challah, there is no such stipulation and concern, because as it's only midrabanan, the whole mitzvah of challah in Chutz La'aretz is only midrabanan, we therefore would say and allow ne'acheles im hazor al hashulchan, because at the end of the day, even if the zor were to eat that challah, it was only midrabanan, and therefore the Chachomim were not that strict. Finally, the Mishnah concludes, V'nitenes l'chol kohen. Explains the Bartanura, this challah in Chutz La'aretz can be given to any kohen as long as the kohen was particular about tumah and tara. However, if this kohen was not meticulous, and he would eat chulin if that chulin was tomei. According to the Rambam, there's no concern, there's no issa for someone, even a kohen, to eat chulin, which is tomei. However, there were some people who were very meticulous and very particular not to do so. In Eretz Yisrael, we don't want to give challah to such a kohen who eats challah when the challah is tomei, because we are scared that the chulin would make tomei possibly the challah. However, in Chutz La'aretz, we are not that concerned, because it's only midrabanan, and therefore v'nitenes l'chol kohen, this challah can be given to a kohen even if that kohen is not particular about eating his chulin, his non-truma, his non-challah, that would be tomei. We mentioned in this Mishnah that in Chutz La'aretz, certainly according to the Tanakama, 2 challahs would be given. Nowadays, of course, only 1 challah is given and is burnt. And the reason the Meforshim explain is because nowadays, even in Eretz Yisrael, when challah is taken, it is burnt. And therefore there's no reason why in Chutz La'aretz we need to take 2 challahs, because there will be no concern that people will think that challah which is tahar needs to be burnt, and therefore even in Chutz La'aretz today we only take 1 challah which is subsequently burnt.